Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. How is the form? I hope everything is good. I hope you're all keeping wonderfully well on this very beautiful Sunday. And here we go again. The All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship is just a whisker away. It's just a couple of days away. A couple of whiskers away, I suppose you could say. I don't even know what that means. But anyway, we are here with the 2022 All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship predictions and preview. As always, you very well know by now, for those who follow on the channel, I'll do a whole host of predictions videos throughout, before national leagues, the All-Ireland Football Championship, all the rest. And we're going to be predicting the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship, as always. Who will win the All-Ireland? Who will win the Leinster Championship? Who will win the Munster Championship? Who will win the Joe McDonagh Cup? Who might be the surprise package in 2022? We're going to be discussing all that, breaking it down, discussing every theme, discussing potential possibilities of All-Ireland semi-finals, quarter-finals, and All-Ireland final. There really is a lot to break down. So if you enjoy this kind of content, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's go! As always, this podcast is brought to you by Declan Kirby GAA Star. Pre-order the book now from Bookstation and be in with a chance to win a family pass to the Croke Park Museum. The new book comes out on April 21st. If you're looking to pick up any presents for any nieces or nephews in the coming weeks and months, then why not check out Declan Kirby GAA Star. Best children's GAA book on the market at the minute, as voted by Amazon and Easons. It's available on all good bookshops, Amazon, Easons, absolutely everywhere. So get yourself a copy. The new book comes out on April 21st, Declan Kirby GAA Star, European Dreams. Check it out now in the description down below, and let's start the stream. And of course, before we get straight into it, do bear in mind this is my opinion. Look, I've got predictions wrong in the past. I'll probably get predictions wrong again. I have also got some predictions right, which is nice, but generally speaking, do bear that in mind. This is just my opinion, but feel free to let me know your opinion in the comments down below. Who do you think will end up winning the All-Ireland? Who do you think can, cause a shock or two? And also, if you do enjoy the football content on the channel, keep in mind the football predictions video will be out in a couple of days. We'll be doing a couple of other videos as well, special podcasts, all the rest, in build-up to the championship, which is just a couple of days away, which is absolutely mental. But here we go then, the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. Well, look, before we get straight into it, let's just remind ourselves of how the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship will work in 2022, because the structure is quite different, obviously, to last year in 2020. Obviously, staunch hurling fans will very well know the structure by now, because it was in place in 2018 and in 2019. But for many fans who may be watching this video who aren't too familiar with it, let me break it down for you. So basically how it works is it's a round robin system in Leinster and Munster, and what we'll actually do is we'll throw the league table, or the Munster Senior Hurling Championship round robin table from 2019, which was the last time the round robin was in place. The reason why it wasn't in place in 2020 and 2021 was because of COVID, and they couldn't have too many games, all the rest, so they obviously narrowed down the championship, as we very well knew, and went back to the original system of a straight knockout. Let me know actually in the comments down below, which do you prefer, the straight knockout system, with there being some qualifiers as well, or the round robin system? For me, I much prefer the round robin. I think it's very, very exciting, and I love the fact that you can get sort of last day dramas, bit like in 2019, which will obviously get the league table up in a minute. But as I was saying, the Munster Senior Hurling Championship from 2019, so basically what happens here is you've got 5 teams in there: Tipperary, Limerick, Cork, Clare and Waterford. Obviously in 2019 you had Tipperary, who finished first, Limerick finished second. Both of them went into the Munster final, and the third place team in Cork went into a preliminary qualifier round to get into the quarterfinals. The loser of the provincial final would go into the quarterfinals as well, whereas the winners would go automatically into the semi-finals. The exact same system in the Leinster Championship, 5 teams in here. There's actually 6 teams this year, but you can see there Kilkenny and Wexford going into the provincial final, Dublin going into the qualifier, and the two teams that actually play in those qualifiers against the third place teams are actually the two sides who finish or the top two in the Joe McDonagh Cup. So in 2019 it was Laois and Westmeath. Interesting enough, Laois actually beat Dublin in that qualifier round and actually went into the All-Ireland quarterfinals, which really shows, I suppose, the great story of having the Joe McDonagh Cup and the fact that teams in here actually have a great chance of sort of doing something, significant, or maybe not significant, but like getting to an All-Ireland quarter-final or whatever. So, interesting. And obviously that sort of same system is in place for this year. So yeah, do bear that in mind. So we'll start off with the Munster round robin, and oh my goodness me, I mean, trying to predict this is almost near impossible. I mean, this is, you feel bad for the two teams who have to miss out here, because I think Munster is ahead of Leinster at the minute, in my opinion, and I think the teams that are going to miss out, like, they could have went on runs in the qualifiers, but that's just how it is. And I think the quality is ahead in Munster right now. I think maybe a couple, 10, 15 years ago, maybe it was a little bit different when Kilkenny were on top, but you look at the sides in Munster and it's just going to be so competitive, so intriguing, so interesting, and I do think you're going to have a scenario where there could be last day drama. I don't think any team is going to win every game, and I think all 5 teams are going to pick up points at some stage, whether it's draws or wins. So I think that's what makes this so intriguing. But in terms of the team I've gone for in 5th, I've gone for Tipperary. And look, as I was saying, there's just so much quality in the Munster Championship. You're looking at Clare, Cork, Limerick, Waterford, and you're thinking, where are Tipperary going to pick up points here? It's going to be very, very difficult. As I said, I do expect them to pick up points somewhere along the way. And I think Tipperary do have some quality hurlers. I mean, for God's sake, they were only All-Ireland champions back in 2019. They're actually the only side other than Limerick since 2017 to win the All-Ireland. But Tipperary are in transition this year, obviously with Colin Bonner coming in there. They've had a couple of players retiring, a few players aging as well, like obviously Pádraig Mars retired. You don't have Bubbles O'Dwyer in there. Seamie Callan's actually going to be injured for the first 2 games of the Munster round robin as well, against both Waterford and Clare, so that's going to be a big miss for Tipperary as well. They conceded 9 goals in 5 games this year, which is actually the joint most alongside both Laois and Clare in terms of the Division 1 team. So definitely a couple of defensive issues there, and as I said before, they have a lot of kind of new players coming in there, and the likes of Conor Bowe and Mark Keogh, a few different lads. Mark Keogh with 211 this year off from play, and yes, they do have a lot of top class hurlers. I mean, we know how good Jake Morris is. Jason Ford has been brilliant for God knows how long. He scored 147 in total this year, 117 of which from play. I'm certainly not writing Tipperary off completely, even though I have them in 5th. There has been this sort of thing in Munster in the last couple of years where the team that looks the most likely to finish bottom of the Munster round robin, or the team that looks most likely to sort of be the team that you would all expect not to come through Munster, very well tends to go on runs. In 2018, Limerick were very much doubted by everyone, and then they came out of Munster and went on to win the All-Ireland. 2019, Tipperary were very much the same. They went on to win the All-Ireland. 2020, Waterford were doubted. They went on to reach the final. Last year, a lot of people looked down on Cork, and they went on to reach the final. So there is a precedent there for Tipperary, and I don't think they can be discounted. And I think with the players and quality that they do have, obviously John McGrath and Noel McGrath as well, who probably have, they are getting to the latter ages of their career now as well. And there is a big transition here. And I just think the other 4 teams are just ahead of them right now. So for Tipperary, it's a little bit unlucky. If they were a Leinster team, I think they'd be very likely of getting out of Leinster, but that's just how it works. So Tipperary in 5th. I will say straight off the bat, I expect Limerick and Waterford to be in the top 2, and we'll get into what order I think they'll be in and who I think will ultimately win the Munster Championship in a couple of moments' time. But I do think it's between Cork and Clare for that 3rd position and for that qualifier position, which we were saying before, and it's a very, very hard one to look at. I think a lot of people would back Cork because of the fact they were All-Ireland finalists last year, and because of the amount of talent that they have and the players that they've been bringing through, and they probably do have a bigger, well-rounded squad than Clare. But I don't know, I kind of fancy Clare, because I'm a bit worried for Cork, to be perfectly honest. They do have a lot of great players. Dara Fitzgibbon's been brilliant throughout the league. No doubt about that. You've obviously got, Patrick Horgan, who hasn't had the best league in total, 141, 1-7 from play. Maybe the standards that Horgan has set are so high that maybe he hasn't quite reached them so far in the league. But I do think he will be key for Cork if they are to do anything special this year. I mean, Shane Kingston has been absolutely brilliant for Cork. since last year, really. You think of that semi-final appearance coming off the bench against Kilkenny, and this year as well, he's been tremendous. 424 in total, 4-9 of which from play. I think the problem for Kieran Kingston, the manager, is sort of putting all the pieces together. You've obviously got Conor Lahan, who's come back in and looked like a brilliant addition to the team. Jack O'Connor hasn't quite been a regular starter this year. Shane Kingston's been on the bench a couple of times. Niall O'Leary hasn't been a regular starter. I don't know if Kieran Kingston knows his best starting 15, and that could be maybe a little bit of a worry. You look at Cork's fixtures as well, at home to Limerick and then away to Waterford. They might be chasing before they get going. They could lose to Limerick and potentially Waterford. Although Limerick at home on the opening day, it's probably the best time to play Limerick in my opinion. But at the same time, it could be tough for them. It really, really could. And Dara Fitzgibbon, as I said, probably one of Cork's best players in the league, alongside Shane Kingston, with 212 from play. So it's going to be a tough one for Cork. And that game against Clare, which I believe is going to be at a neutral venue in Thurles. I'm not exactly sure why, to be perfectly honest. I think Cork have one home game. Everyone else has two. So whether that's just a mistake on the GAA.ie or what the crack is there, I don't really know. But that game as well, like on round 4, that is going to be so crucial, because that will really tell us who can potentially get into that third position. And as I said, both of these two sides, Cork and Clare, could go on runs and maybe sneak into a Munster final. I think Cork are more likely to get into a Munster final, even though I actually think Clare are going to finish in third. But yeah, it's so tough. So yeah, as I said, I'm going to go for Cork in fourth. And the reason why I've gone for Clare, and it's a hard one. I feel like I'm nearly talking myself out of it at this stage, because they are actually coming on the back of a little bit of a poor league campaign, 1 win in 5 games, but they do have probably the best hurler in the country, and not probably, I think they do have the best hurler in the country in Tony Kelly, and he's obviously back from injury. He scored 332 in the 3 league games since coming back from injury, averaging 13 points per game, and actually has the best points per game ratio of any player in the country. So that goes to tell you just how well he has done in the 3 games since coming back. The Mark Rogers injury is definitely going to be a problem for Clare. He was brilliant in the first 2 league games, scoring 117 and 1-4 from play, and his injury could definitely make a big difference. But I do think Clare have a lot of sort of players that are coming under the radar, like obviously Peter Duggan's come back in there. I like the likes of Ryan Taylor, who I think is a good player, Aaron Shanahan as well. So I think Clare, I'm just going to back Clare, and it's an indifferent prediction, and maybe it might upset some Rebels fans in the description or in the comments down below, and that's fair enough. I can understand the logic behind going for Cork, but I just think Clare and Cork, they're at a very even trajectory, and I think that game could really go either way. You've seen even as well, Clare, for example, when they played Cork last year, that save by Pat Collins against Tony Kelly at the end. So really, really could go either way. And looking at Clare's fixtures, they go away to Tipperary. They're then home to Limerick, away to Cork. Well, we don't know where that game's going to be at a neutral venue, and then home to Waterford. Be tough. Maybe Waterford are already in a Munster final by then, by the time they play Clare and take their eye off the gas. I don't really know, but I'm gonna back Clare. It's a bold prediction, but you know what, life has been made for making bold predictions, so fuck it, let's go with Clare in third. And as I said, Limerick and Waterford in the top 2. I'm actually going to go for Limerick in second and Waterford in first. I think Waterford are going to be a little bit more consistent throughout the league, or throughout the round robin, I should say, and throughout the 4 games that they play in. And I think maybe Limerick might slip up once or twice, and maybe Waterford actually might get the better of Limerick in that round robin game, albeit it will be at the Gaelic grounds in Limerick. And actually, looking at Limerick's start, away to Cork, home to Waterford in their first 2 games, 2 tough games, and Limerick will need to hit the ground running, make no mistake about it. I've seen a lot of people doubting Limerick, and I've seen a lot of people saying things about Limerick, that they won't get out of Munster and they've had a poor league campaign. I've seen that tweet by Buff Egan where he was saying that Limerick wouldn't make it out of Munster, and I just don't quite understand the logic behind it. Like, I understand maybe if you think Limerick might slip up this year, but I just don't think there's any evidence to suggest that they won't get out of Munster. I mean, they are the best team in the country. You know, 3 All-Irelands in the last 4 years, 3 Munster titles in that time as well, 3 Munster titles in a row, national leagues they've won. some of the best hurling in the country. Cole Hayes, Cian Lynch, Aaron Gallan, all these lads who've been absolutely brilliant for Limerick this year. Dan Morrissey, top class in defence of fullback since coming in there. Nicky Quaid, an excellent goalkeeper. They have so many options. You're adding Cathal O'Neill now into the mix. The midfield of Dara O'Donovan and William O'Donoghue. I think once Limerick click, they click, and they will click at some point. I don't expect it to be at the start of the Munster round robin, but towards the end of the round robin and towards a Munster final, expect them to click and expect them to really deliver. I still think they're a force that needs to be stopped. You look at Paul Kinnerk and John Kiley, they've overcame every obstacle that has been thrown at them. I know they got beaten by Kilkenny in 2019. That was a little bit controversial, let's not forget that. And they actually, although they played very poorly in that game, nearly actually came back and won it. So, I think Limerick, in my opinion, they're gonna take some stopping. I think they will get beat in the round robin, but I think beating them in big, crucial, important games in Munster finals and in the All-Ireland series is going to take some master plan. And I do think Waterford are the closest. I think Waterford have been absolutely brilliant this year. 22 goals in 7 league games, the best attack in the country, statistically speaking. Stephen Bennett has been exceptional, 851, finishing as the top scorer so far, or finishing as the top scorer in the National Hurling League. You're looking at the emergence of Cotherick Daly. Calum Lyons is brilliant as well. You've obviously got Jamie Barron still to come back in at some point. So, and Desi Hutchinson, as I said before, could very well be the best hurler in the country. I definitely think he's in the mix. He's in the conversation. I think he's absolutely brilliant. So I think Waterford have a real chance. And you look at Waterford, they obviously won the league for the first bit of silverware there for Liam Cahill. Let's not forget Ballygunner won the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship as well. Waterford are getting used to winning things, and I think that was the main piece that has been missing for Liam Cahill. If they can win Munster, I think winning an All-Ireland is a really realistic possibility. But in terms of this league table, Waterford first, Limerick second. So that would leave Clare going into the qualifier, and we'll get into that in a moment. We'll run through the Joe McDonagh and who they could potentially face there in just a couple of minutes. In terms of the Munster final prediction, I'm going to back Limerick. I think they will have enough. I think they've had Waterford's number in the last couple of years. Although Waterford could very well beat them in that round robin game in the Gaelic rounds, I'm gonna back Limerick. I think Limerick will just about have enough, in my opinion, to squeeze past Waterford. What I will say is, I think Limerick and Waterford, they could play each other potentially 3 times this year, and I fully expect that they will. So yeah, I think Limerick will have enough to win a 4th Munster title in a row, which must be a record. Incredible stuff. We then look at the Leinster Championship, and as I said, you have 6 teams this year. They've added another team into the Leinster Championship this year, which I think is fair, to be perfectly honest, because I think it means that it's not as, you'd look at this and you'd say, Laois would probably be the team that would finish 5th quite comfortably, but at least with Westmeath in there, it makes it a bit more competitive. So, and in terms of 6th, it is Westmeath, let's be perfectly honest. They did have a very good Division 2 campaign. They won 5 of 7 games. Killian Doyle has been very impressive, scoring 234 with an average of about 5 points per game. And Jack Gillen has been brilliant as well, scoring 330. Let's be honest, it will be between Westmeath and Laois for who gets relegated back down to the Joe McDonagh Cup. I'm not too sure. I don't think the team who finishes 5th in Munster can get relegated, and I think that is fair because I think Tipperary are definitely very well ahead of both Westmeath and Laois, let's be perfectly honest. Looking at Laois, I think they will have enough to avoid relegation, and I think they will have enough to stay in the Liam McCarthy Trophy because they've been doing that consistently now for the last couple of years. And interesting enough with Laois, actually, no team has been beaten out of all the Joe McDonagh and teams in the Leinster Munster Championship and in the Liam McCarthy series. No side has actually been beaten more than Laois, but the kind of main reason for that is because they keep finding a way to stay in the Leinster Championship, even with one win or whatever. So it's definitely been interesting there. And Laois are probably more likely to take a scalp, although I don't think they will. And they do also have Westmeath at home on the final day of the season as well, which will undoubtedly be an absolute relegation humdinger. You're looking at Stephen Maher, PJ Scully and Patrick Purcell to do a bit of damage for Laois. But yeah, I think Laois will have enough finishing 5th. Westmeath will go down, unfortunately, most likely losing every game and finishing 6th. The battle for the top 3 in Leinster is going to be absolutely mental, and we're going to skip ahead to who finishes in 2nd, 3rd and 4th just for a brief minute, because I do think Kilkenny will be the side to finish first. Look, it's the 24th year in charge for Brian Cody. Leinster is his bread and butter, and even with Kilkenny, the thing that's impressed me the most in the last couple of seasons is that even when they don't play well, they have a knack of just continuously scoring, chipping away at the scoreboard, hitting 4 or 5 points on the bounce. And they're one of those sides that, in the Leinster round robin, in these kind of games in Leinster, they just have a knack of winning. They have a knack of beating teams. They have a knack of beating Wexford. They have a knack of beating Dublin. I think they'll find a way past Galway as well. I think they will drop points somewhere, but I do think they'll have enough to finish first. And I think a lot of the other teams are probably in a bit of transition, so I think Kilkenny will have enough. Padraig Walsh has been brilliant throughout the league. David Blanchfield has looked very good as well. You add obviously Owen Cody in there, some of the Ballyhale lads, TJ Reid to come back in, of course, one of the best hurlers in the country, as we very well know. You've got Richie Reid, you've got Adrian Mullen. They just have a whole host of options. James Berg and James Marr in that sort of wing-back role. So, Hugh Lawler in a full-back. So they have so many options all across the pitch. A top-class goalkeeper as well. I think Kilkenny are one of those sides that could very well be dark horses for the All-Ireland. I know it sounds weird saying Kilkenny dark horses. It's sort of something we're not used to saying. But I do think they are dark horses, and they could be a side that could potentially cause a shock or two somewhere along the way. And I do think they'll finish first and win the Leinster Championship, but we'll get on to who they'll be playing right now. The battle for fourth, third and second, or the battle for third and second in my opinion, is just, it's the hardest prediction I'm going to make, to be honest, in this video. It's so hard to call. And look, I obviously am a Dublin fan, a staunch Dublin man, and I'm really hoping that Dublin have enough this year to break into that top three. Before the start of the year, or before the league, I would have been very confident that we'll make into the top three. Looking at Wexford's league form, it makes it tough. Wexford, the best defence in the country statistically in Division 1. They've conceded the least out of anyone. They won 4 out of their 5, or they won all of their league games, should I say, in Division 1A. But of course, as we very well know, they got beaten by Waterford very comfortably in that semi-final. I think Wexford have shown a lot of improvement and have definitely been a team that has caught a lot of people by surprise in the league. The only problem with Wexford is, as good as they are defensively, they do have a couple of issues in attack. So only Laois, Antrim and Offaly have actually scored less than Wexford. So it shows how well they've done defensively, but they do maybe have a couple of issues in attack. I think Rory O'Connor is absolutely brilliant with 3. He scored 337. Lee Chin is having his injury problems at the minute, and I've heard he could be a doubt potentially for the round robin series, which could be a problem. You've obviously got Conor McDonald and Cathal Dunbar who's come in there as well. So they have a couple of options, but I'm not quite so sure they have enough in attack as Dublin and Galway. And that is why, even though they haven't had a great year, and I think Dara Egan is certainly moving them in the right direction, and they do have 2 home games as well against both Galway and Dublin, which is going to be very, very tough. It's what makes this prediction so hard to call. Dublin, on the other hand side, are probably the more sort of team that, they're not as much in transition as probably Wexford and Galway. They've a settled manager, obviously, in Matty Kenny. More of a settled squad in the likes of Owen O'Donnell in a full-back who has had his injury problems as well, but hopefully he should be okay for the Leinster round robin. Ronan Hayes, Rian McBride who's come in there, Fergal Whiteley, Danny Sutcliffe, whether he starts or is coming off the bench, tends to make a big impact in a lot of the games he is as well. Donald Burke, I mean, what can you say about him? 153 in total this year as well. So Dublin certainly have a lot of very, very good players, and away to Galway and away to Wexford might be tough for Dublin. Home to Kilkenny, but Kilkenny seem to have Dublin's number and seem to be able to beat Dublin with one eye open. Let's be with one eye closed. That's kind of been the way it's been for Kilkenny in the last couple of years. Galway, on the other hand side, with Henry Shefflin, it wouldn't surprise me if they finished 4th and missed out, because we've seen them do it in the past, and we've seen how poor of a year they had last year in the championship, finishing winless. But I just think with Galway's quality and with Henry Shefflin in there, even with Joe Canning having retired, I still think they'll have enough to finish in that top 3. And I actually think they'll finish 2nd. Conor Cooney with 37 points this year has been good. But we know obviously Evan Nyland, Ronan Glennon, Cathal Mannion, top class player. Fintan Burke is very good as well. Brian Concannon, expecting a big year from him after what was a bit of a disappointing year in the end last year, after a very positive start to the league. Away to Wexford and Laois, they have the rest at home as well, which I think is crucial. They've got Kilkenny at home, they've got Dublin at home, Westmeath at home. So I think Galway will do enough to finish second. In third, I'm going to back my own county. Do you know what? I want to be on record to backing my own county. People who follow this channel, I always, I'm objective, at the end of the day. I don't just back my county for the sake of it. You know what I mean? I obviously want Dublin to win the Leinster Championship, and I don't think it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. So, but I do think we just have a bit more than Wexford, and we beat Wexford, of course, in that pre-season competition final, as we very well know. So I think Dublin will just about have enough, and going away to Wexford, I think is round 4. I think of the round robin. That will be such a huge game. So I'm gonna back Dublin just about to sneak into third. We'll run through the Joe McDonagh Cup very briefly, and we'll talk about the top 2 teams I expect to finish in the top 2, and the 2 teams, and who to win the Joe McDonagh Cup, and who obviously to go on and face what would be Clare and Dublin, according to my prediction right here. So looking at the Joe McDonagh Cup teams, you've Meath, Carlow, Antrim, Offaly, Kerry and Down. Meath have done very well. They're a bit like the Laois kind of Division 2. They've found ways to survive in recent seasons, and I think a lot of people expected them to be relegated last year, and they found a way to stay up, so you have to give them a lot of credit there. Jack Regan was the top scorer, actually, as a matter of fact, in Division 2A, scoring 149 for Meath, and he's been very, very impressive indeed for this Meath side. But you're looking at the teams in there, you're looking at the progression of Down, you're looking at Kerry, Carlow. I think they'll have enough. I think if a team is going to go down, it could be Carlow. I do think Carlow have a lot of quality, but they've just been very inconsistent in the last couple of seasons, and that's why I think they'll finish in 5th, even with someone of the quality of Marty Mouse Kavanagh. I think it will be Antrim and Offaly in the top 2. I think Down and Kerry will cause a couple of problems. I think if anyone's going to drop out of that top 2, I think it would be Offaly. Be interesting to see how they respond from having lost every game in Division 1. But this is more sort of at their level, and I think Owen Cahill was very good throughout Division 1, scoring 336 in total. He was their top scorer throughout the league. So, but I do expect Antrim to have enough to come out of the Joe McDonagh Cup. Look, they done it obviously 2 years ago. They have the experience. Neil McManus, absolutely brilliant. Keelan Malloy, Conal Cunning, James McNaughton, these lads. I think Antrim will have enough to get out of the Joe McDonagh Cup and to win the competition and be back in the Leinster Championship. We obviously seen them beat Offaly a couple of weeks ago as well in the Division 1 relegation playoff. So I think Antrim will have enough, but I think Offaly will also go into that preliminary qualifier. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And obviously with the qualifiers, I'm not too sure how exactly they do it, whether it's an open draw or something in terms of who Clare and Dublin can play in the in terms of Antrim and Offaly, or who it would. One game I'd be very, very fascinated to see would be Clare and Antrim, because normally they give the John McDonagh Cup team the home advantage. We obviously seen what Antrim done to Clare the last time they played each other at Corrigan Park. I wouldn't see it happening again, but it would be very, very intriguing. I do think ultimately, though, you'd back Clare and Dublin to come through their respective qualifiers and make it into the All-Ireland quarterfinals. Hopefully this isn't too confusing to follow, but what that would mean then is Clare and Dublin would play the runners-up from both Munster and Leinster. I'm not too sure how it works in terms of could Dublin end up playing Galway, which would be in this instance, because I think Kilkenny will have to. I just realised I didn't predict Kilkenny Galway. Kenny Galway then Leinster, the Leinster final. How will that one go? I think Kilkenny will have enough, because they're consistently finding a way to get through the Leinster Championship and win these Leinster finals. And although I think Galway will give Kilkenny a lot of problems with the likes of Evan Nyland and a few other lads that I mentioned before, and it would be very intriguing obviously seeing Henry Shefflin going up against Brian Cody for the second time. But I think Kilkenny just about will have a little bit more. Galway certainly are improving, and they certainly are bridging that gap. And I think in the next couple of years you will see Galway picking up silverware, winning Leinster Championships. But I think Kilkenny will have enough for this year. Okay, so getting back then to the quarterfinals. So again, I'm not too sure if Dublin can play Galway and Waterford can play Clare, because they're both in the same province. But looking at both Waterford and Galway, could if it was Clare and Galway, who would win that and make a semi-final? Oh, it'd be very tough, wouldn't it? You'd expect Waterford to beat whoever they play. But looking at Dublin and or looking at Clare and Galway, that would be an extremely tough one. I'd probably back Clare, just with the momentum that they've had to make the semi-finals. Very tough one, though. Ultimately, what I will say, though, is obviously Waterford and Limerick, with the fact that they would have played each other in the Munster final, according to my prediction, I do think they'll play each other in the All-Ireland final. I think ultimately what way it goes, whether it's Waterford, Kilkenny, Limerick, Kilkenny. I mean, Limerick, Kilkenny would... Well, obviously Kilkenny, according to my prediction, would win Leinster, so they wouldn't be able to play each other. But regardless of what way it is, and as I said before, I'd love to see Dublin make an All-Ireland semi-final or potentially make an All-Ireland final. I just don't see it happening, to be perfectly honest. I think Waterford and Limerick are the two best teams, and on All-Ireland final day, it would be so interesting, wouldn't it? As we very well know, Waterford haven't won the All-Ireland since 1957. Limerick have won 3 All-Irelands in the last 4 years. We've seen what they done to Cork last year. In the height of summer, we see the type of hurling that Limerick can play, and we see the fact that pressure does not faze them in any way whatsoever. And John Coyley and Paul Kinnerk have found the answers in All-Ireland finals year after year, time and time again. So, look, I'd love to back Waterford. I'd love to see Waterford win the All-Ireland. I lived in Waterford for a brief period of time. I love that county very, very much. I'd love to see them do it. I look at Desi Hutchinson and Cotherick Daly, Caleb Lyons. The way they play hurling is just phenomenal. And it does, the whole Limerick and Waterford thing, it's starting to remind me quite a lot of Dublin and Mayo, in the fact that, if Mayo were in any other era, they probably would have won 3 or 4 All-Irelands with that team. But because they're coming up against an absolute juggernaut in Dublin, who had some of the best footballers in the country and were so dominant and were so used to winning, whatever Mayo could throw at Dublin always found an answer. And this kind of reminds me of that, where Waterford might beat Limerick every now and again, but in the big, big crucial games, All-Ireland finals, I think Limerick will have enough. It will be so intriguing, and obviously by the time an All-Ireland final comes around, we'll know more. There could be injuries, there could be other factors, suspensions that could come into it. You don't really know how it could all potentially pan out. And look, I could be completely wrong, and maybe Waterford finish third, end up playing Limerick in another All-Ireland semi-final, but it'd be so intriguing. But you look at it and you think, how can you back against Limerick? I just don't see how they don't not win the All-Ireland. And they just are ahead of everyone else. And I know they had a poor enough league campaign, but they've found the answers time and time again. And we've seen what they've done to Waterford when they've played them. Like, they've neutralised Jamie Barron, they've stopped his influence. Austin Gleeson, who I haven't even mentioned actually through this video, which probably tells you just how much options Waterford have. Even his influence hasn't quite been there in the Limerick game. They've just found a way to stop Waterford's top players. And Limerick have found options in the likes of, Cole Hayes breaking forward, Shamie Flanagan, who had a big game against Waterford last year. They found big players in these big games to step up. Aaron Glan as well, Peter Casey, all these lads. So I just think Limerick will have enough. By the time an All-Ireland final comes around, maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe when I'll see how both teams play and all the rest, it will be more intriguing. But whatever way it goes about it, I think Limerick are right now the best team in the country. I think Waterford are just behind them. I think that gap, based on the league, could very well be, becoming slow. I can't even find my words here. That's when the video's gone on too long. The gap might be bridging, let's say, if that makes sense. But I still think Limerick will have enough. As I said, Waterford, 22 goals in 7 games. Goals will be a big thing, and if they can get goals against this Limerick side, that might just be the big difference. But I think Limerick, for me, just about. As much as I'd love to see Waterford win it, I have to remain objective, and I think Limerick will win the All-Ireland. In terms of the Christy Ring Cup, now I will be perfectly honest, I know absolutely diddly squat about any of these counties at all. You've got London, Sligo, Mayo, Kildare, Derry and Wicklow. A lot of sides progressing there very, very nicely, so it's great to see. I think Derry and Kildare will be the two favourites there. Kildare obviously coming down from the Joe McDonough Cup last year. They'll want to obviously get back up there. They have a lot of good sort of players coming through the ranks. Jack Sheridan is one player who's looked very impressive there. So I'd expect it to be between Kildare and Derry. I think that actually might have been the Christy Ring Cup final a couple of years ago as well. So I'm going to back Kildare to come through the Christy Ring Cup. But anyway, lads, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Do let me know in the comments down below, what are your predictions for the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship? Who do you think will be Player of the Year? Who will be player of the year? Should we predict it right now just for the crack? Keane Lynch has obviously won this award a couple of times already. Could he win it again? I'm not sure. Who gets it? Who gets it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I think it will be between Keane Lynch. Could Shamie Flanagan maybe be the one? Could it be a midfielder this year? Do you know what? We'll go with Kyle Hayes. Why not? Let's just throw that out there. Kyle Hayes, Hurler of the Year. That's my prediction for 2022. But yeah, we'll wrap this up here anyway. If you did enjoy this content, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. Stay tuned for the football predictions. That'll be out in the next couple of days. We'll be doing all-star predictions for the football championship as well. A whole host of other videos and other things to discuss. So make sure you stay tuned for all the videos, all the content, and I'll see you all later.